Thanks for clicking. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this one.
Capitol Hill was a theater, and every office had its cast. In District 47, the seat was held by Representative Carson Wexley, a charismatic blowhard with perfect teeth, expensive suits, and no idea how government actually worked. He didn't read policy briefs. He didn't meet with constituents. But he did know how to go viral. Every move was a calculated soundbite, every vote a photo op. He called himself a disruptor of the establishment, but behind the scenes his office was more chaotic than revolutionary. And in the eye of that storm stood Reagan Price, his chief of staff. Reagan had been in politics for 15 years. She'd worked for senators, governors, and even ran a state campaign that almost flipped blue to red. She knew the system inside out, and she'd taken the Wexley job after a 6-month sabbatical and a moment of temporary insanity. At first, she tried to coach him, simplify briefings, prep him for interviews, write clean, bipartisan talking points. But Wexley wasn't interested in governance. He wanted headlines. "Just give me a one-liner," he said during a budget review. "Nobody reads the actual bill. That bill funded school lunches. You want a one-liner for feeding children?" Reagan asked deadpan. "Yeah. Something with freedom in it." It got worse. Wexley insisted on tweeting from the office account himself, often while under-caffeinated and overconfident. He banned fact-checkers. He replaced the policy analyst with a TikTok intern. He refused to read more than a paragraph of anything. And worst of all, he began micromanaging Reagan. "You're too soft," he said, echoing the infamous words of every clueless boss. "We need to run this place my way." "You mean recklessly?" "I mean boldly." He issued a new directive. From now on, all staff must get explicit approval from him on everything. No more taking initiative. No more adjustments. Every talking point, every request, every email must go through him first. "I'm in charge," he said. "I want to know everything before it leaves this office." Reagan stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. "You got it. From now on you approve everything." Malicious compliance kicked into gear at 8:03 a.m. the next morning. It started small. The legislative aide came to Reagan with a scheduling issue. I was gonna move his committee prep call from 10 to 11 because the whip's office just shifted the vote calendar. Reagan shrugged. "Can't. Carson has to approve it." "You serious?" Page 1 of his new rules. "All changes go through him." "Go ask." The aide rolled her eyes and left. 10 minutes later she was back. He said, "I don't do calendars." "Then I guess the call stays at 10. He's supposed to be in the vote at 10. Reagan raised an eyebrow. "Then I guess he'll miss one of them." Next came the press secretary. "Hey, should we tweet a response to that education bill markup?" Reagan smiled. "Absolutely. But Carson has to sign off on the draft." "He's golfing." "I know." The tweet never went out. Constituent mail piled up. Request forms sat unsigned. Briefs remained unread. Reagan followed his directive exactly. Nothing left the office without his explicit approval. He was too distracted to keep up, so the office slowed to a crawl. By Friday, the intern was walking in circles with a fax from the Energy Committee that was already outdated by the time Carson glanced at it. Still, Reagan kept her calm. She never disobeyed. She never took initiative. She just let the system fail exactly as he designed it. Then came the real kicker. Carson was scheduled to speak at the State Leadership Conference, a high-profile event packed with donors, media, and fellow reps. He'd been pushing for the keynote slot all year. 3 days before the event, the organizers sent over the final confirmation package and a request for his prepared remarks. Reagan reviewed it. The original speech she drafted was strong, substantive, clear, a perfect mix of charisma and policy. But she couldn't send it. Not without his sign-off. So she printed it, placed it on his desk, and waited. He never read it. The night before the conference, Carson texted her at 10:43 p.m. "What time am I on tomorrow? And do I have a speech?" Reagan replied, "You're on at 9:30 a.m. As for the speech, you never approved one. So we didn't send it." 3 dots. Then, "You're joking." She wasn't. The next morning, Carson Wexley was in full panic mode. He stormed into the green room of the State Leadership Conference at 8:47 a.m., sweating through his designer blazer, tie crooked, hair combed in a rush. "Where's my speech?" he hissed. Reagan was already there, sipping a coffee and calmly reviewing the day's event schedule. "You never approved one," she said flatly. "You knew I was speaking." "I did." which is why I drafted it and left it on your desk 3 days ago. You said all messaging needed your sign-off. I waited. You didn't approve it. I was busy. So was I. With nothing. The event coordinator knocked and poked her head in. Congressman Wexley? You're up in 10. Teleprompter team's asking for your copy now. Carson looked like he might throw up. Reagan didn't even blink. Shall I send them the blank file? He opened his mouth, closed it again, then grabbed a yellow notepad off the counter and started scribbling. 8 minutes later, he stepped on stage with a half-baked speech written in Sharpie across 2 pages. It bombed. He stuttered through vague talking points, misquoted stats, and made an accidental reference to banning weekend brunch, which got picked up by a reporter on Twitter within seconds. He left the stage to polite, confused applause. Reagan waited at the side, holding a copy of the original speech. Would have killed, she said, patting it. Carson glared. You set me up. Nope, she said. I followed your rules. That afternoon, back in the D.C. office, things really began to unravel. First, the Education Committee pushed forward a major funding amendment, one Carson had promised to oppose publicly. But because he'd never approved the official position statement, his office remained silent. His name was left off the counter proposal. Second, his biggest local donor, Harold Granger, a wealthy contractor with an ego as big as his belt buckle, called to complain about a lack of response to his latest infrastructure request. I sent 2 letters and 3 emails, Granger grumbled. They're sitting on the congressman's desk, Reagan said sweetly. He hasn't signed off yet. You telling me you're just not responding? Only following protocol. Granger didn't take it well. An hour later, he announced he was pulling his Q3 donation. The cherry on top came during an emergency vote on farm subsidies. Carson was at the gym. Reagan texted. Emergency vote. Do you want to make a statement? No time. You handle it. Can't. You told me not to. He showed up late and out of breath, and voted the wrong way. Social media erupted. One agriculture group labeled him the enemy of corn. By the end of the week, Carson's approval ratings dropped 3 points. Local media ran a story titled, The Congressman Who Can't Hit Send. His Twitter replies were a battlefield. Even his interns looked embarrassed. On Monday morning, Carson barged into the office and slammed the door behind him. Enough, he barked. This whole approval for everything crap ends now. Reagan looked up from her laptop. That's a reversal of your formal directive? Yes. Would you like to submit that in writing? For clarity. He blinked. She pulled out a memo form labeled, Internal Operations Policy Reversal, Form 6B. Sign here. He stared, then scribbled his name like a toddler in timeout. Reagan took the form, neatly filed it away and smiled. Back to business as usual. Carson deflated into his office like a punctured beach ball. But it wasn't over yet. Not even close. Because while Carson had been unraveling on stage and online, Reagan had been quietly gathering receipts. Missed votes. Donor calls. Screen grabs of contradictory public statements. A full audit trail of his mismanagement under his own directive. And someone had been watching. The House Ethics Liaison. Reagan never planned a takedown. She wasn't that kind of person. But Carson Wexley was the kind of congressman who built his own gallows and demanded everyone applaud while he climbed it. All she did was hand him the rope and follow his policies. On Wednesday, a request came in from the House Ethics Liaison for a routine documentation check. In politics, routine never means routine. They wanted all communications involving missed votes, committee inactivity, and unprocessed constituent services during Carson's approval-only directive. Reagan happily provided time-stamped emails, physical memos with his signature, or lack thereof, a PDF archive of every file that sat in limbo because of his own bottleneck. She even included a spreadsheet titled, Compliance Log Weeks 14 to 18. In the comments she wrote, per Representative Wexley's directive, no office action was taken unless explicitly approved. Please find attached all pending and delayed actions logged in accordance with that policy. The response from the ethics office was short and chilling. Thank you. This is extremely helpful. 2 days later, Carson received a confidential memo marked urgent. Reagan placed it on his desk. He opened it. Read it. Went very quiet. The memo didn't accuse him of wrongdoing. Not outright. But it hinted, gently and legally, that his office's procedural failures had created a pattern of concern. And that further oversight was being considered. That was all it took. To donors, it was blood in the water. To the media it was a whiff of scandal. To his own party? A liability. At the next caucus meeting, Carson wasn't called on to speak. No one asked his opinion. The whip didn't even make eye contact. He was fading, fast. Back at the office he tried to claw back control. New strategy, he barked one morning. We go hard on messaging. I want 3 talking points a day on my desk. Push the family values angle. Reagan tilted her head. You mean the one you said you wanted to hold off on in March? He blinked. I said that? You did. I have it in writing. Along with the speech you ghosted on and the vote you missed while deadlifting. Carson slumped into his chair. I just need a win. Reagan offered a sympathetic smile. Wins require follow-through. That's been the problem. The final blow came via a call from District 47's Committee for Political Endorsements, a group of wealthy backers who quietly decided which candidates got support. Reagan took the call. Listened, nodded, then walked into Carson's office. They're pulling support, she said bluntly. They're looking for a primary challenger. Carson stood up, furious. This is your fault. Reagan didn't flinch. I followed every instruction you gave. I asked for no permission. Took no liberty. Sent nothing you didn't approve. You ran the show, Congressman. He paced. You should have protected me. I did, she said. I protected you from yourself for 6 months. And when you took over, I let you run things your way. And this is your way. A week later, he announced he wasn't running for re-election. Claimed it was for family time. Nobody bought it. The next day, Reagan submitted her resignation. She left the office with no drama. No gloating. No press leaks. Just a clean desk, a full resume, and the satisfaction of having taken down a political career using nothing but a clipboard and a rule set. She took a job consulting for a non-profit ethics board. The irony wasn't lost on her. And as for Wexley? He tried to pivot into podcasting. It lasted 3 episodes. The end.
And that, my friends, is how a self-obsessed politician got politically wrecked by his own rule book. One memo at a time. This story wasn't about sabotage. Reagan didn't scream, revolt, or go rogue. She simply gave the congressman exactly what he asked for. Total control, and let the weight of that control collapse on his own shoulders. It's a powerful reminder that in politics, or any job, micromanagement doesn't create better outcomes. It creates bottlenecks, blame games, and blind spots. And sometimes, the best way to expose a bad leader is to step back and follow their orders exactly. If you worked in Reagan's office, how long would you have lasted before cracking? Could you keep up the malicious compliance, or would you have jumped ship early? Have you ever had a boss, manager, or leader who demanded control over everything and then couldn't handle it? What happened when you followed their rules too perfectly? Drop your stories in the comments. I'm always reading and replying. And don't forget, the best stories often come from people who've been there. If you like this tale of political chaos and poetic justice, give it a like, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell. We got plenty more stories about clueless bosses, power-hungry micromanagers, and everyday people who win by simply following orders. Until next time, remember, sometimes compliance is the most powerful protest of all.